Today we are going to do the DX7 Myth Busters. Come along for the ride, why don't you, okay?
Before we go any further, let me just give a shout out to my subscribers, both new and old. And if you haven't done so already, jam that subscribe button and get on board with the Synths and Guitars channel. We got a lot more hacks coming your way, synthesizers, sound design, and more. So don't miss out. And once again, all your support is greatly appreciated.
There are a number of misconceptions and myths regarding the DX7, and I see them perpetuated to this day, and for the life of me I can't figure out why these things are being said, but I think it just stems from a misunderstanding, or maybe no one's ever taken the time to explain what the DX7 does and how it goes about doing the thing that it does, especially in light of today in 2020, modern machines like the DX and the Montage 7 that I'm playing behind me. So one of the first misconceptions and myths about this machine is that you couldn't layer parts on it. And nothing could be further from the truth. I have here the number 4 cartridge from the original included cartridges from this machine. It was numbered 4, has the orchestral and percussive group on A and the complex and effects group on B. I have it on the B setting, and the first one in this data bank is called Clav E Piano, and it has a clavinet and a piano later on top of each other. How do they do that? They're using algorithm 9, which has some branching and some stacking, and if you turn off, I'm going to turn off 4 through 6. Now we have you can hear there, that's the electric piano part. And turn on the other 4. There is your clavinet, so all together now. A number of the sound banks on this disc, or I should say this cartridge, have layers. Number 4 is harpsichord. Harpsichord and string, and as the harpsichord fades out, the strings come in. The way this is done is through, this one's using algorithm 5, which has 3 stacks, and if I turn off the last 4, you have part of the harpsichord. Turn on the middle 2, there's your harpsichord, and then the last 2 must be your strings. Yeah. So this is a perfect example of the stacking and layering attributes of these algorithms. Algorithm 5 is used a lot for this because you have 1 and 2 stacked, and then you have 3 and 4 stacked, and then 5 and 6 stacked. So what I've done is I've just turned off 1 through 4. Now you just have 5 and 6, and you hear there's your strings, and it's hooked up to the modulation wheel. It comes in with more volume as you turn that up. So now putting it all together, you have your harpsichord with your strings underneath. And there's a number of them on this cartridge. Number 5 is chime strings. And this is one, I'm going to get into some of these complex sounds in a bit when I bust through some of these other myths, but here the strings are much louder. And if we get into, let's see where the strings are. I think that's going to be, yeah, so your strings on this one, again, this is using algorithm 5, and the strings are on operator 5 and 6. So 1 through 4, 3 and 4 are your chimes. So they seem really soft. So what I could do is turn on, so those are the loud ones. And what I'll do is I will turn up the operator level for 3 and 4. So I just brought up the level of the chimes. Now you have there you go, layered parts on the DX7. Alright, one of the next myths is that you couldn't split this keyboard. And I will admit that it's a little tricky to do, but it can be done, and it's actually not impossible. So let's look at some of these that have a split keyboard. There's one on the number 3 disc that's called Train. It's a whistle and a bell. It's actually a 3 split. And then I have one here that I put together, and I believe it's number 6. So split voice. This voice here is an example of a split voice. That's why I call it split voice. And on the top, on the bottom, is this kind of bass. And it's split using a breakpoint and curves. There's a breakpoint of A2 on the operator 3. From operator 3 on is this bass sound. And then up here, there's nothing because I've split it so that there's this kind of flute sound. And then below, you don't hear anything because it's split. Again, the top part is using breakpoints, E4. As you come down, it disappears. As you come up, you hear the sound. If I turn those off and then have the bottom, disappears as you come up past A2. And then together, so there's an example of a split voice. And then there's another one that I wanted to show. That is on the Master Group cartridge on number 3 here. And the A group has this train sound. That is number 30. And cartridge 30. And that one has a 3 split. They've managed to break the keyboard into 3 parts. So up here you have a bell, and down here on the bass section you have this train going down the tracks, and up on top you have this bell. In the middle, right in here, is a whistle. The modulation wheel works the volume of the train going down the tracks. So as you can see, the keyboard can be split. It is not impossible to split the keyboard on the DX7. The next myth that was perpetuated on this machine is that you needed effects to make it sound good. This one is a gray area because, of course, this synth sounds amazing when you use various kinds of effects, such as chorus and reverb and delay and all the rest. But it has the ability to emulate effects because of the operators. And so I took all the effects off. I have this running through my Montage 7 behind me. It's going through the 80 input. I turned everything off. It is completely dry. I've got the brass sound here just to show. That's completely dry, as you can hear. And, you know, honestly, it sounds amazing to me. I mean, of course, if we put some of the effects back on, of course you're going to hear, let's see. Let's turn on both Hall of course you're going to have more space and headroom, and it's going to sound better, but now this is a real dry sound right here. I'm going to pick one that has a delay built into the algorithm. Bell and flute, number 7, bell and flute. Now I'm going to play that. This has no effects on it. I took all the effects off. It's got an echo. And it changes. It's not always the same. It sometimes seems to come up, and sometimes the echo is down. That's an example of how it emulates a delay using the algorithms. I'm still trying to figure out how that was done. It has to do with the envelopes. Obviously, there are different voices coming through at different times. This is using algorithm 5, so it's very, very common algorithm, very simple algorithm, and it emulates a delay. Here is another one. This one is called Water Garden. And let's do cartridge Water Garden. And this one you can hear. And then here's one called Evolution. It almost sounds like it's backwards. It's got a slow rise in. And then some of the other operators begin to take over. So this one's called Evolution. Again, just another example of a completely dry sound that sounds like it has delay on it or a backwards effect, just due to the envelopes and how they're designed. The next myth that I would like to address is that the DX7 is a cheap instrument. I understand at some point they were fairly affordable, and they could be had for maybe, I think, $250, something like that in the States here. And those days are long gone. They've been discovered, and they also seem to be getting scarce. A few months ago when I picked my DX7 up, I paid $700, and I felt I was paying a lot at the time, but I knew it was a good investment because of the condition it was in, but also it came with everything, the original box and the original accessories, every single piece of marketing material and the manuals and a book about the DX7 programming and a case. So, I mean, it was fully loaded when I got it, so I figured it was worth it. And the prices now have gone up from what I can see right now. Today I'm looking on eBay. There is one that's going for $850. It is DX7, but it's just the keyboard. There is no accessories. There are no cartridges with this particular sale at the moment. And it's tested and working, it says. So it doesn't look like it's, even guaranteed to be that great. Who knows what's loaded into it? You would have to go and find out. But that being said, I'm also looking here on Reverb, and there is a DX7S and a DX7 2D. These are around $650, $700, and that's it. There are no original DX7s that I can see here. Well, actually, here's one, Collection Status FM synthesizer, and this one's going for $950 plus $200 shipping. So that's about what I'm seeing right now, that they're going for about $1,000 now in really good condition. So I don't know about you, but I don't consider that cheap. And when I paid $700 for this, I did not feel that it was cheap. I felt like I was spending a lot for a very old vintage synthesizer. In the grand scheme of things, it's actually very affordable if you try to get an OBX or any of these other analog synthesizers. You're going to pay a lot of money. So in that respect, it wasn't a lot of money, but they're definitely not cheap. So let's just dispel with that myth right now. I think the days are gone when you could actually say that a DX7 is a cheap instrument. And finally, the final myth that I'm seeing perpetuated to this day is that the DX7 is impossible to program. And nothing could be further from the truth. Yes, I can imagine that back in the 80s when it first came out, no one had ever seen these before, and the depth of it was extremely daunting and intimidating. And I do get that in the 80s, it took a lot to wrap your head around what was actually going on with the programming of this and how it was done through this one little screen and these buttons here. and a couple of other, a slider and a couple of other buttons there. But being that we're in 2020, I'm still seeing this. One of my videos on the DX7 has a comment that says that it's impossible to program this instrument, and that is just not true, especially in light of today we have the Mode X and we have the Montage. It has way more parameters. It has 10 times the amount of depth and complexity when you try to program it. So I'm going to go through right now and show you some top level things I think that will dispel the myth that it's impossible to program this instrument. Now I'm going to bring the camera over so you can see this left side over here. But these buttons, all these green buttons here, have writing on the top on both rows. That is kind of a purplish color, and then there's writing on the bottom, which is a brown color. And then inside of these green buttons are actually numbers on the side and the alphabet, so you could actually use it as a typewriter and type in your names when you do your programming. But these are all multi-function buttons here, these green buttons. And I'm going to bring over the camera now, and we are going to program the camera up so you can see this part of the instrument. You have a data slider here, and for data entry you could either slide that, or you could use this plus and minus or no and yes function here. And then on this side you have an edit button, which is the purple, and on this far side here you have a brown function. So the purple has to do with everything that's listed on the top. That's how you get into those. The brown is how you get into everything on the bottom. So I have string chime turned on here, and I have a lot of effects, which I don't want. There we go. So we have a clean sound now. And we have string chime. What I'm going to do is go into edit mode, and you just do that by pressing the edit button, which is purple. And over here, on the top here, is everything. Here's your algorithm. I can select a different algorithm. Right now it's algorithm 2. I can use this data slider here to either jam it up real quick all the way and go all the way through 1 through 32. That's going through. Or you could use the yes and no. I'm trying not to block the camera. Yes and no here, and go through one at a time. And so that's going through the algorithms. Okay, so with this string chime sound, I am going to go into edit, and one of the things is that the chime sound is really, to me, very low. So I want to bring that up and maybe alter that sound. And you can hear that the string sound comes in after that. It's pretty loud and it's pretty aggressive and bright. So one of the things that is really easy about programming the DX7 is this top row, the first 6, operator on off, and it's a way to turn on and off the operators just by pressing those. And to me, that's way easier than the Mode X and the Montage. To be able to do this is super easy. And one of the benefits of that is you can figure out where the sounds are coming from. So I'm going to turn off 1 and 2, and then 5 and 6. And so there's your chime part of it. It's just coming from the 3rd and 4th operators, operator 3 and 4. And then 5 and 6 is part of the strings, and 1 and 2 are part of the strings. And you can hear that there's a difference in pitch, and there's some detuning going on. That's why you get that waver. But if I turn all of it on now, all of the string parts, That's why they're so loud, because the strings are doubled, but the chimes are low. So what I'm going to do, since I've turned all those off, only operator 3 and 4 are now selectable. And that's just done with this little purple button up on the top here, operator select. So now that I've turned off all the other ones that I'm not working on, that will just toggle through 3 and 4, which are the chime sounds. And you can see the output level. We have operator 3, which is the carrier, is 97. I'm going to just jam that all the way up. I just turned up to 99. And then for the operator 4, I'm going to turn that up as well to 99, max it out. And now you see that chime sound got way louder. And so now if we add in, let's add in all these other parts. Now it cuts through a little more. And even if we just get rid of 2 of the operators, you can really now have a much different aspect to your string sound. So let's mess with the string sound. I'm going to turn off the chime part of it. And now this is a little aggressive, so we got algorithm 5, so that means that the feedback level has a lot to do with that aggressiveness. Say the feedback's at 7, I'm going to put that to 0. Look at that. So it just really quieted down that sound. Made it much more mellow. Now let's turn them all on, and what do we got? I'm finding that, let's turn that off again. So that's a nice mellow sound. This is pretty aggressive. Operator 1 and 2. So I'm going to take down that output level. So operator 1 is very loud. It's at 99. So look at this. See this data slider here. I just up and down, and then I bring it to 0. Now I'm slowly going to bring this up. And that mellowed it out a lot. Operator 2 is at 85. We can even maybe bring that one up. And see the character changes. The modulator output level vastly affects how just these 2 operators react with each other. So if I want a mellower sound, I bring 2 down. And then another thing we can do is the frequency. So that's pretty low already. And let's see what operator 1 is. Bring that, listen, this will get much lower. So see how easy that is? I mean, I'm just able to get in and vastly alter these sounds. And there's not a lot of menu diving or page after page and submenus to deal with. Everything's up here on these strips and here, and then the data slider. And so listen, I mean, I can really alter the sound just with this coarse tuning of the first operator. Now note, I'm only playing with 2 operators here, 1 and 2 from this sound. You can see the amount of effects this gets. And we can do a little bit of fine tuning. Now let's bring everything back in. So after I've done that bit of tweaking, there's a compare mode here. Edit also has compare over here. Now if I press it, it starts blinking. This was my original sound. And what this does is it allows you to see what changes you've made. So a real simple way to go back and see, where did I start? I started from here, which I didn't like too much, and now I got this. Look at the difference. This is what they gave me stock from the factory, and this is what I was able to get. Same goes for everything else. The LFO low speed. How long the LFO takes to come in, the delay. We've got some pitch modulation going on here. I can alter that. You can see how vastly this gets altered using this data slider here. It's almost like using the modulation wheel. So it's kind of fun to do this because of this data entry. It's such a simple system. You have a data entry slider, a yes and no, plus and minus, and then you have all your parameters that you get into up in here. So to say that this is impossible to program is really not true. This is a joy to program, and the effects that you get and the finished product can go from very dull to more interesting with just a little bit of tweaking. A lot will happen. There you go, a little example of how to very easily alter a sound within 10 minutes. Go from something that you don't really like too much to something that you can really start playing with and develop. I like this sound a lot more. It's more of a string or a pad sound now. They've got rid of that clinkiness to it, but we can always bring that back. Hope you enjoyed these 5 myth busters for the DX7. Thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.